Today on the Perception and Action podcast, my interview with Martijn Nijhoff from Dutch Baseball and the Pittsburgh Pirates. So it's time for a call to action. Hi, this is Rob Gray from Arizona State University. I've been on a now over 25-year journey as a researcher, professor, and high-performance consultant to understand how we acquire and adapt our perceptual motor skills. Welcome to the Perception and Action podcast, where I discuss how psychological research can be applied to improving performance, accelerating skill acquisition, and designing technologies. Before we get to today's topic, I want to tell you about my new book, Learning to Optimize Movement, Harnessing the Power of the Athlete-Environment Relationship, available now on Amazon in paperback and ebook formats. This book is the follow-up to my best-selling skill acquisition book, How We Learn to Move. In it, I discuss how we can go beyond learning basic coordination to becoming an elite mover. Evidence-based principles for learning and coaching optimal movement. Take your game from proficiency to mastery. Now on to the show. I was really pleased to talk to Martijn today about his coaching journey. This and the episodes I've already put out this year are part of a theme I'm going to have on the podcast. I'm declaring 2023 the year of the coach on the Perception Action podcast. Instead of focusing on how athletes acquire skill, I want to put more emphasis on understanding coach development. How do coaches develop their skill within an ecological approach? For this, I'm going to have some key topics that I'm going to cover and a lot of interviews like today's where I'm going to look at people's coaching journeys, how they've gone to apply ecological approach and some of the challenges they've faced. Hope you enjoy. Okay, today it's my pleasure to be joined by Martijn Nijhoff. Martijn, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you too for having me.
My pleasure. It's been a long, we've talked a lot, so this has been a long time coming. So to start off with, can you just kind of give us a little bit about your background in coaching and, where you got all started?
Cool. So when I was, I think 10, I wanted to be a professional baseball player and I wanted to be a PE teacher / trainer. And I'm, from the Netherlands. So baseball is a very small population that is playing baseball. So I was pretty okay. So I was in all the national teams and then I went to college. And then I saw that there was a million of me. I wasn't throwing hard enough, but I already did 1 year of PE, a physical education school in Holland. So I got back and I finished my degree, and I became a PE teacher. And at the same time, I started training baseball players from the age, I think 19, 20, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then, but I was still playing myself too here in the Dutch highest league. So when I was 27, I quit and I started focusing on just training baseball players and doing PE class in a high school. And then at a certain point, the Dutch Federation asked me to take over a role of Brian Farley. He became a national team coach of the men's team. And he was, prior to that, he was the talent coach, which means that you run the under 18 national team and you are responsible for the talent development between 12 and 18 years old in the Netherlands. And of course I said yes, because it was my dream. And now from, just training 3 times a week at a certain place with all these talents and then visiting all these regional talent development programs, we said, hey, let's have a full-time program through our Olympic National Training Center in Amsterdam. And so now we have 20 baseball players that live in Amsterdam, go to school in Amsterdam and train before and after school. So they train 9 times a week. And I run that program. Mm-hmm. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know. And anybody that doesn't know, like the Netherlands baseball program, especially if you do it relative to your population, is incredibly successful, right? It's done really, really well. It's really impressive from a place you don't consider to be a baseball hotbed, right? Especially.
Yeah, it's crazy. We and it's also, of course, a huge help, or like Curacao, Aruba. They is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So when we go to World Cups and the European Cups and stuff, we gather a team together who are the best. So that includes Aruba, Curacao as well. But yeah, we're ranked 7th in the world right now. We just added one place from 8 to 7. Yeah, it's amazing. I have 1,500 baseball players in the age group of 16 to 18 or 19.
Wow.
I think the US has 500,000. So yeah, it's it's kind of crazy.
So with your, PE and starting coaching, I'm guessing, I don't know that you started with a very more like your training and when you started was more traditional mechanics, repetition kind of way to, or did you start?
Methods like, okay, you do this, and then the next step is you do that, and the next step is you do that. I learned that in PE school. Also, a lot of internal cueing, of course. You got to do this, you got to do that. Okay, let's watch the video. You see your elbow is a little bit too high, too low. It needs to get up. You're not stepping straight to the pitcher. You're crossing over. Can you step on this line? Yes. Okay. Can you do it 10 times in a row? Yes. Okay. Now throw a ball at the catcher. Boom. Stepping across again. Okay. Can't you step straight to the catcher? Super traditional.
Kind of. Yeah, no.
And I did it for 6-7 years. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not, that's the way we all was, and so
I didn't know any better. And I was also, I was taught like that.
Yeah. No, that's how I learned to play too, hockey, and the same thing. And you just kind of do what you know, and and usually there's some successes with it. Like I don't think anyone's denying that it doesn't work at all. You get some improvements, and some people obviously develop very well under that system. Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah, but a lot. I thought I was really good too, and then because sometimes it was working, and if it wasn't working, it was certainly not my fault.
No, yeah, they were, they're uncoachable, right? Go away, yeah. So was kind of the changing, the turning point was it meeting Franz Bosch? Or?
Yeah, it was meeting Franz. I was also, because I, pretty high in Holland or in the Netherlands, coaching baseball. Of course, physical education. You get taught softball, so they asked me to teach at the physical education school where I graduated from, and so I was coming there like 10 weeks a year, and then this guy said, "Hey, there's this new guy running around here. Can you talk to him and explain him baseball?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I grabbed my computer and I sat down with him and I showed him how baseball would work and how teaching works, and it was all based upon, okay, these are these major leagues at the Right View Pro system, which is a analysis program, and there are all these major league players, pitchers, and hitters in there, and you could make a video of your player, and you put it next to these three, and then you say, hey, look at toe touch, his elbow is here, and his front foot is there, and then click, get to connection, and then. So I was talking, and then after 10 minutes, Franz, it was Franz Bosch who I was talking to, started laughing, and
not surprised.
Then he opened this computer, and then I said, "Oh, let me show you some things." And then I was like, "I cannot really answer what you're saying right now, or what you're asking, because I never thought about it in that way." And he just kept going for 2.5 hours, and my jaw was here. And I walked out. I'm like, I gotta start studying all over again. And he gave me some directions on what books to read, and I started doing that. And then, everything changed. Everything changed, and he started to be my mentor. And I started looking at skill acquisition totally different than I was before.
Yeah. It's funny, kind of when you mentioned that video program, we kind of chuckle, but very similar to what people want to do with fancy biomechanics equipment now, right? Yeah. They just have better equipment. They're trying to do essentially the same thing, a lot of people. So that's really interesting. Was there anything, that, I sometimes find people, when they hear about this, there's like, they go back to something they might have just tried either by accident or when they were coaching before that, like, oh, okay, that makes sense why that worked. Was there anything like you were doing before that kind of fit with the Franz's message, or was it really just kind of a complete shift?
No, it was a complete shift.
Yeah.
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I meet a lot of people that say, oh, yeah, now I understand why I do this. Now I understand why I do this, or why that works. No idea.
No, I know it's not all. I think some people kind of retrofit their ideas, but
yeah. No, I've been reading the wrong books the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
was it the self-organization? Was that kind of the biggest concept that kind of blew your head off?
Yeah. Dynamical system, self-organization, but also the perception-action coupling. What we always try to do is we separate it, and then we think we can construct it together again, and then it works. It was on a lot of ends. It was I had to change everything.
Yeah. And I, as you can tell from your presentations and stuff, you spend a lot of time reading and understanding it rather than just, okay, I'm going to try this thing without really. How did you kind of first put it into play in your coaching and stuff? Did you just kind of completely shift, or just try a few things, or how did that?
At the beginning, we struggled, and we 100% flip flop the other way, and like Franz said, you start with maybe implementing 50%, but once you start doing it, it doesn't really work to do 50% of this and 50% of that, because the more you read, and it's a process, it takes some time, but the more you read, the more you understand. It's like, okay, I'm doing this for myself, but not for the kid.
Yeah.
to do the 50% because it doesn't do a whole lot. So yeah, you start changing, but it's so ingrained. We even did a study with the Human Movement Science in Amsterdam, and they mic'd up 6 pitching coaches, of which one was the national team coach. And they followed these pitching coaches at the regional talent centers and at the national team for 4 weeks. And every training, they wrote out what they were saying as an instruction or organization or really feedback. And we were dealing with this for 4 years already, and still, I think 65% of all the cueing was internal.
Yeah.
Although we were really focusing on. Give more external cues, create more environments where what leads to learning through self-organization. So it's in our Western society, or at least in Holland, it's so ingrained that you don't even realize how much internal cueing you do.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I love that. I always cite that study. I love that. There's similar ones too in other sports. In rehab too, they get the same thing. It's at least 70% internal cues, mostly places. But it's interesting. It's interesting to hear you say that. I often get people say, well, why can't I just mix and match kind of different approaches to be more flexible in my coaching? And I have the belief that you get the same thing that you just described. They begin to conflict with each other, right?
Yeah.
If you try, like I always if coaches want to start, I always say, okay, yeah, the same thing you did. Like, let's do a couple activities or 50%. But I've always found you quickly realize these things are totally doing different things, and they're really like letting someone self-organize, then going to tell them what to do with an internal cue, are like opposite things, right?
It's funny, right? Because when you really thought about creating an environment where he, what leads to learning or should lead to learning through self-organization, and you're watching and you're like, stimulating him and stuff like that, and then something he doesn't get it, and then you say what he needs to do, and then then it's not self-organization anymore, and you see the guy really start thinking, and then this clearly doesn't really work too.
No, I think it's really in the so I don't, how was it important to you to, I know through Franz you got this, to kind of understand, and I'm sure you had this skill already before, and now analyzing movement and anatomy, being able to look at a video of someone and understand kind of on the, did you practice a lot of that and develop a lot of that skill?
Yes, I watch a lot of video. I watch a lot of movement, and in the beginning, it was more like the outline that was created from Right View Pro.
Mm-hmm.
But through the reading and Franz being my mentor and meeting other people, you start to look in deeper layers underneath of how self-organization works, and you're starting to train these underlying principles instead of the outside mechanics.
Yeah.
So now when we look at movement, or when I look at movement, we even have a movement assessment in place that is based upon these underlying principles, like you got to have optimum length in the core to elastically transport the energy, or the load, how what are the qualities of the load, or when your foot hits the ground and you're interacting with the ground reaction forces, how does that look? The deceleration of the movement, and that shows up differently in players because of how they're built, and they're also always a little different. And it's not this is the perfect example. Let's say Garrett Cole is the perfect example, so everybody has to throw like Garrett Cole. So we really try to look at what happens on a deeper level in the body, and then we try to manipulate that to get that more stable, or as stable as possible, so it becomes more robust. And then he develops his own technique.
I think if Franz says that the last summit, right? You put in the bio back in biomechanics, right? Right? Not just focusing on mechanics and understanding why. Yeah, that's something that when I kind of talk with a lot of coaches, I always say, what are the principles you want here? Not the movements. What balance, accelerate, that's what I think, is as much as you can. I think so. I know from your presentation and talking to you, you like to use kind of a mix of constraints, and you use a lot of differential learning, right, in your coaching as well. Can you talk a little bit about kind of some of the things you do?
Yeah. So I think, everybody knows the Aquabex right now. And I think the company is called Ultimate Instability, or you read it as Ultimate Instability. And I think that's just a brilliant line, because what you try to do with differential learning is create so much variation on certain parts that you only can solve these problems by trying to be more stable, because that solves all the problems. And that's basically the philosophy that we use. And if you look at the constraints-led approach, where you have, of course, the task and the environment and the body, we work mostly with environmental and body constraints, and a lot of variation in there. So you cannot really think about what you're doing, but you just have to find it through all the experiences that you get. And then it's interesting. We were doing a new study now in the Netherlands with the Human Movement Science University again, as we have a student that is really looking into, and it's been done once before by Paul Venner and Bart Hanegraaf, but he's going to do it on a big scale now attacking, the attractors of the movement assessment. Let's say, okay, this guy has not such a good load. He's going to do a lot of strength and conditioning work combined with hitting, focusing on the load. And the other one has a foot plant, and the other one has deceleration problem. The other one has optimum, length problems of the core. And it's a crossover design of I think 5 weeks, and then we flip-flop it another 5 weeks, and it's like 30 practices in total, 60 in total, where it's okay, you partially fatigue part of the body, and then you start to hit, and you have to find solutions, because the task is going to stay the same. You have to hit the ball on the sweet spot of the bat and try to have a hard exit velo. And we keep measuring the exit velo, and we keep measuring we have a bat sensor, and all that stuff, and we hope, and we kind of expect that the bat speed goes up, that the exit velo goes up, and that the time from foot plant to contact gets shorter. But it's exciting.
Yeah,
most of them love it, but some of them don't.
That's really exciting to see. I remember Paul's master's work was really interesting in that way. We don't really play around with the individual constraints. We talk about them a lot, but we don't really manipulate them enough.
No, right? I don't see a lot of programs that really do it.
Yeah, when the task ones everybody does, and the environment you can play around with, but doing that, I think that's a really interesting approach, and So
I also think the if you look at the environment and the body, and you manipulate those, the training becomes so much more fun, also for the players, because they have small movement problems that they have to solve, and I don't know what is more fun than being challenged. When you want to get better.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find you get any resistance to that though when you get, or maybe like at higher level players, do they kind of still like that, or you kind of have to sell it to them a bit more, I think, but
I think explaining not in detail, because then you start thinking but explaining like why and how learning works. And if you want to get better, you should be challenged, and a little bit more explanation is much needed. I was in we had a pitching camp with the Pittsburgh Pirates in December, and I always been asked to explain why we train, because if the players have more buy-in, then it works better. That's
100%.
Rocket science.
When you work at the lower level, sometimes you can just tell people what to do and they'll do it. Right? It's easier, but you're right. You have to sell it a little more, I think.
It's funny, but like here in Amsterdam, they know that we train like that, but we still explain it. And it's really direct. Okay, why are you, not working hard? Don't you want to learn? If you want to learn, okay, etc., etc. I guess with pro players, it's could be a little bit different, but I think a lot of players, they know intuitively what works for them as well, very well, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of issues with big group of players. Like most of the players they buy in pretty fast, and there's always players that have problems with it, but sometimes it's also because of what their mindset is.
No, and I think one of the constraints is the culture, right, you create. And I think like the Pirates, you guys are really, with you and Bart, now Franz, if you set the culture that you're going to look silly sometimes, we're going to make mistakes, it just kind of, you get more than, you kind of have to establish that. That's the way we're going to learn.
And I think like the Pirates, like the organization is how they bought into this, and everybody's almost speaking the same language. All the trainers and coaches, strength trainers, PTs, like we're all moving in that direction. So then it becomes, the culture instead of just five guys shouting something.
Some guy with his saying all these weird words like attractors and affordance. No, that's really great. I really love what you guys are doing.
That's amazing to see.
Yeah, it is, and when you get some successes and, is there anything, that's kind of a struggle still, or maybe, or even just at first when you kind of trying to move in this direction? Was there?
Yeah, I think struggle is more to the outside world. Even here in Holland, you keep explaining. You have to keep explaining it, and we quite have a turnover of new coaches. Not professional coaches with the federation, but the club coaches and the board members, or like there's a lot of turnover, and you just you have to keep explaining the same thing. That's sometimes
that's a good point. I think I've experienced that. I think I coach kind of tennis sometimes with kids, and they immediately gravitate towards it. It makes sense. It's the parents who have to keep explaining to it, because it looks like I'm not coaching in the way that they expect, at least, right? I'm not standing beside their kid in some isolated drill telling them a whole bunch of things. I'm kind of, looks like they're just playing around, right? But they're not. But yeah.
And then the image that they have of what good coaching is because of the culture that we have. And sometimes it also takes a lot of time to really explain it well to, like you said, like these parents. That's so. The players, not so much, or everything around it. It's challenging sometimes.
Yeah. No. This keeps coming up, and I get a lot of, you get a lot of pushback from people saying, you don't need theory of skill acquisition to coach, but you have one. It's just so ingrained in people that across all of life, not just sports, right? This is how we learn, right? We don't question it anymore. It's not a theory anymore. It's a fact, right? For most people, this is the best way to learn something. Yeah.
And it's funny because if you look at, like we call it, the qualities of elite performance, like it's adaptability, that you have to, do not give up, goal setting, all these things. If you train like the way we're training now, all these things, because you're failing like 35% of the time, those character traits come up as well. And you really can coach those. And I think like doing the same thing all over again and telling them, oh, do this and do that, and like creating robots that then those qualities do not come up at all, is my experience. And so I think there's more deeper layers of this way of coaching to it, to train a human being better with how to deal with failure, how to deal with little bumps in the road. Find a solution instead of whining, why is it not working? All these things come up in these practices as well, and I think that is a huge plus. As well.
Yeah, and I think so too. And I think it, as a coach, it also makes you more connected. Kind of, one of the things, like I've always, like at the summit with you guys, this year was really toying. I was just watching him go through his exercises. Yeah. Like anyone can set up the exercise from the start. Like, here, do a connection ball drill. His ability to watch you do it and then change something about it so that you do it differently is unbelievable skill. And Bart does it, you do it, Randy, that's the art of coaching, right? Right.
Well, I'm always jealous when I see Teun at work. Teun Thomas, he's a really good strength and conditioning coach. Like he demands a high level of execution when you do a drill, and he really pays attention to it. And if you don't do it, he tells you that, okay, is this all you got? Like, come on, you got to move faster, you got to move quicker. There needs to be more tension or whatever. And sometimes, like you said, is weak. Okay, when you do differential learning, or when you use variation, or when you do traditional training, still you can have high demands of the execution of what you want to see from the player. And like you said, that's where I think really good coaching is. You have to tell them this is not good enough.
Yeah, push them a little.
If you do like this, then you're not gaining anything out of it.
Yeah. No, I think it's just remarkable. Like on all different levels, I really enjoy watching that. And like I said, anybody can read a book and pick out a set of drills and do them. It's just adapting and being to the individual you're working with and all that stuff. That's
for
great.
Sure. Yeah. And see, okay, do I have to push it now, or maybe not? So let them figure it out a little bit more, and that is different from one person to the other.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you have to spend a lot of time with these players and really try to, see who they are and how they come into the practice. Maybe we had a bad night of sleep, or
fight with their girlfriend or something. Yeah, you're right. You have to. Those are constraints too. We have to think about. So
sure.
So what if you had someone that was coaching a more traditional way, and they heard about this kind of self-organization, constraints, attractors, what would how I'm sure you actually do this with the people in your organization, but how do you get them started, like thinking if they want to go in that direction?
I sit them down and I start showing them. So I made a bunch of presentations where you combine the theory with how the practical application looks and why that is. And then so I show them, and then I give them homework, and they come into practice, so they see how it works on a daily basis, and then they start asking questions. And it takes obviously quite some time to get people up to speed in this, and as long as these coaches are willing to do that because they're interested, then let's go. But it's hard to give a 15-minute presentation and say, well, good luck, and now you are on the right path. It takes a lot more time than that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and something I worry about sometimes with this. Like, people see, you put a ball under the guy's arm when he's throwing, and I'll just do that. Well, does he actually need that? Yeah, not every pitcher needs that, right? And then what do you do next? So I think understanding the basic principles and the why is really important, right?
Yeah.
Why are you using this? So I always say, this approach is not just a new set of drills. It's a new set of principles you can use to almost any drill, right? Right.
Yes. And then they, when they do not really get it is when they ask you, can you give me your 3 best drills on this? And it's funny. I tried to explain this to the players too when in December when I was at the camp. It's like, okay, maybe this drill feels better or this drill does more, but it's not about one of these 3. It's the mix of all these drills interacting with each other that gives you the opportunity to find a solution that works for everything. And it's not just these 3 drills. If you fall in love with 3 drills, no, I said, please do not fall in love with 3 drills. Fall in love with everything.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and it's hard to get across. So, I'm not. I think I agree. Getting some of the understanding of it and playing around with it, and so is that way. When you mentioned homework with the coaches you work with, you get them to just kind of try things and report back and their observations, things like that.
Yes, but also like we have made like a whole course of like 10-15 minutes of
Okay.
explanations of things. Like you can start watching that, read some books, come back with questions, try stuff out, see what it does, and then give me some feedback on it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a whole bunch of things that we do with new coaches to get them up to speed on what we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a conversation and asking why and trying to explain it and have a discussion about it, that really works, instead of okay, do this, do that, or oh, these guys are doing this, that's stupid, I don't like it, I'm going to stick with this. That doesn't work. It's always about having a conversation with each other and being willing to say maybe this works better than that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And if you do not have that open mind, then I don't think you're progressing.
Yeah, 100%. I think just thinking through it and if I move the batter, make the batter stand way up in the box, what might it do? What might it help with? Why?
What do you see? What's happening?
Yeah. How are they adjusting? And I think that's a great way to put it. And so you mentioned you're working with the Pirates now, and are you going to be involved in the team, the World Baseball Classic? Are you been
for the Dutch?
Yeah.
No. Well, a little bit on the side, but
you're more about the
I am more focused on 16 to 21 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think players that are older might need, or I think it's very cool that you can make a player a lot better in this period of time, between 16 and 21. I think when you're 25, 26, 27, and you're already at some level, it's obviously harder to get a lot better. So I get more energy out of this. I think World Baseball Classic is more about performing.
You're right.
Right now, and for us, for me, it's more about development. So I have no, how do you say it? More, I do not per se have to be at the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah. No. That's kind of the same when people ask me to work with any major league player. Not usually, right? I'm hopefully helping mostly no. I'm hopefully helping the process for them getting there down the road. Same with you, but you're right. There's just a different kind of environment, and what you're right. Yeah.
But it's very interesting to see how the selection process goes and what they're trying to accomplish and how all that works. So I'm very close to it, but I'm just observing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like I said, it's and I know you have a lot of other things going on too with this. So, but no, that's really great, Martijn. And I think it's I always enjoy your presentations at the summit, kind of. Yeah. Where I think we're all kind of learning this along the way and connecting things along the way, and I think
it's been quite a ride, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Every year I kind of you understand it a little bit more. I think that's me too. It all starts to come together, hang together a little bit more, and now that we got,
I think to watch how that is evolving is really cool to see as a group, how we all do it together, and what you bring with also like with the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's.
And I think
I have books, but also when I'm driving the car, I 2 hours. I like to listen to music, but sometimes.
Yes, I was told that early on. Coaches have a lot of driving to do, so they're gonna have time to listen. So no, that's great. Yeah, no, and I really appreciate, I think it's also really valuable to hear everybody's kind of journey with this, like from a lot of different, kind of the struggles and challenges and things like that. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's it for today's episode. Remember, you can contact me at robgray@asu.edu or follow me on Twitter at ShakyWaves. To find out more about the podcast, please check out perceptionaction.com. Finally, to support the podcast and receive bonus materials, including written transcripts, please head over to patreon.com/perceptionaction. This is Rob Gray from ASU. Cheers for now, and keep 'em coupled.
Gone straight away.